There are so many people on the internet who cannot accept the fact that they are going to be criticized, whether they're putting out a product, whether they're releasing their opinion. They are going to have people who disagree with them. And of course, there are individuals out there like Kim Belair and Nick Calandra who want their critics silenced. And that is exactly what we are talking about today. I have a few different things to show off, but before I get into the topic, if you enjoy the content I create, check out the links in the description, join the community in my live streams, and consider supporting through Patreon or YouTube memberships. Now, these people are cancel culture vultures. They always pick a target and go after them tooth and nail until that person fails, until that person gives up, until that person's presence online is erased. And over the past, year and a half or so, we've seen people that work at Sweet Baby Inc. try to cancel gamers. We've seen individuals like Nick Calandra go after content creators, and they're losing, clearly. And they cannot accept that fact because they are used to being given everything on a silver platter. The AAA industry has welcomed these activists with open arms because these companies are also filled with activists. Sweet Baby Inc. only got as big as it did and got to work with the companies that it did because Kim Belair had already been in the industry. She knew a lot of people and she was able to worm her way into these companies, but clearly that hasn't really worked out for them. Sure, they're making money, but a lot of the partnerships have been canceled or the contracts have been finished and they're not getting a lot of new work. Though, of course, they have been very upset by the fact that so many content creators have criticized them. And sure, when you work on a project for years, you put your heart and soul into a company, I completely understand that you want people to see it the way that you do. You want people to love it. You want people to connect with it, but that hasn't happened. And so instead of acting like normal, level headed adults and allowing people to criticize them, these individuals are saying that all YouTubers who are not on their side, so all YouTubers who are not radical leftists, need to be silenced. So Nick Calandra, somebody who I've talked about plenty of times in the past, he was one of the people who called for mass reporting of Smash JT's Kotaku Detected website. He has gone after a lot of YouTubers who he deems are grifters and losers, and I think it's so funny. These people act like they are professionals and they're journalists and they have integrity and ethics, yet then they go on to completely ignore the fact that people have freedom of speech and we are allowed to criticize, and they just want everybody silenced. But Nick Calandra had said, I really wonder when these game studios are gonna take action against these YouTubers and social media grifters making up lies about people working at their studios, their business dealings, sales data, etc. It's clearly affecting businesses. Review bombing, harassment of developers, stalking campaigns. When do you take a stand? It's not contained to social media anymore, and we all know it. And obviously, harassing developers, sending them death threats, those things are not okay. But when they say that there's harassment and all of these awful things going on, 95% of the time they're overreacting. And that sucks to have to say because I want to believe all developers when they come out and say, oh my God, we're facing so much hatred and harassment and everything's going terrible for us. I don't want that to happen to these people who are just trying to make games. But at the same time, following a game's development process and reporting on it is not stalking. It is not harassment. It is not some awful, terrible thing. That is what journalists do. Now, I do not fancy myself a journalist. I don't have a journalism degree, and it would be a hell of a waste of money. I've thought about it just for the lulz, because I'm sure 90% of the people in the industry don't actually have that degree. But we are talking about people who are customers who are just reporting to other customers, and that shouldn't be a problem. When you are putting out developer forum posts and website updates, you're putting out posts on X, you're doing promotional videos, all of those things are free to be criticized. You just don't like the fact that people are criticizing you because you support, the activism going on in the industry, you support narrative consultation companies. And yes, it is affecting business. And do you know why? Because people do not want this bullshit anymore. People do not want to pick up a game and then find out 10 hours into it when they can't refund, it was filled to the brim with your activism. These people in the industry are not trying to make games for the sake of escapism and entertainment. They are using games as a vessel to push propaganda, and that is what people do not like. Having a black character or having a woman character or having a gay character doesn't automatically ruin the experience. And of course, someone like Nick Calandra thinks, oh my gosh, they're just racist, sexist bigots. The problem lies in the story that you're telling with these characters, why they're here, the journey they go through. People don't have a problem with diversity when it is done naturally, but the people in the industry right now are not doing it naturally. They have checklists that they're going down and they're trying their best to convince you that all of these things are very normal. Now, they talk about how I wonder when game studios are going to take action against these YouTubers and social media grifters. How would they do that? We are criticizing and critiquing and highlighting public information. You would think that he would know that. So what are these studios really going to do? It's like with Ghost of Yotei. Let's use that as an example. Sony could have come out and owned the chuds, but they didn't because they don't have the numbers to back it up. They could have, a day after release or 2 days after release, put out a picture with Atsu saying, thank you for the 2 million sales, 3 million sales, whatever number they hit, but they didn't. And now we're almost 2 weeks after release and they still haven't released any numbers, and they could have easily owned the chuds and silenced the grifters that you're talking about. They could have easily stood their ground and said, these are the numbers, they're not player numbers, they're sales numbers, and this is how good our game is doing. But because it's doing bad, they can't do that. And so their silence speaks louder than words. And he says that people are making up lies about the studios and their business dealings, then they should come out and clarify. It's like with Sweet Baby and a lot of the people in our space, like Smash JT, Hypnotic, Master of the TDS, myself, we've talked about Sweet Baby and quite a lot. I say this all the time. If someone like Kim Belair wants to come on my channel or wants to do a written interview and wants to have a level-headed discussion, I could certainly do that. I could put my opinion on Sweet Baby to the side to have a discussion for a little while, but it's these people that don't want to have a discussion. It's the Chris Kindreds and the Kim Belairs that don't actually want to sit down with their critics and have these discussions because they don't know how to talk to people they do not agree with or that are not praising them. And it's pretty pathetic. But Nick Calandra, of course, is very upset about content creators. And Kim Belair liked this, of course, not particularly shocking. So clearly she does agree with this sentiment. Though it's just pretty pathetic all around that this is happening, that they sit here and play the victim, like with the recent seminar that was done. It was also Master of the TDS who had highlighted this, but Sweet Baby Inc. CEO Kim Belair had said there are thousands of videos about us, but of those people, no one has written to us to say, hey, can I just ask a couple of questions about how this works? And this is a complete and utter lie, though they also play the victim and say that we did nothing wrong, we did our jobs the best we could, and you sit here, right? And you say, no one's reached out to you. No one wants to talk to you. I am perfectly willing to talk to you. Feel free to reach out to me. Follow me on social media. Send me an email. My business email is in the channel about in the description. I would be happy to have this conversation, but that's not going to happen because these people don't talk to their critics. So I found this particularly interesting. Do I think anything is going to come of this? No, because how are they going to get companies to silence us? Truly, genuinely. Are they going to copyright strike and abuse that system on YouTube? Are they going to throw around lawsuits? all they are going to do at that point is waste their own money, because in the United States, we have this thing called freedom of speech, freedom of expression. We are allowed to voice our opinions, and none of this information is private. All of the information I show in my videos is public. And so there's nothing that they could do against YouTubers. But someone like Nick Calandra wants to try to find a way to have content creators silenced that he doesn't like, and Kim Belair agrees. But that's all that I really had to discuss in this video. Let everyone know your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this important and informative, make sure to give it a like, and if you didn't, give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I'll talk to you all again in the next video really soon.